the Everything But Politics podcast.
All right, we're officially live here with Braden Roggow. Braden, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
It's great to be here. Definitely a pleasure. Great to meet you guys.
Uh,
Nice to meet you too.
Braden, you've ran 745 days in a row. By the time this is released, you will be at day 750. Let me just start by asking you why.
Why? Yeah, that's the question, right? But why does that anyone do anything is what I always say. I mean, the reason for me was pretty simple. I really struggled to get into running initially. Really, really struggled. Probably like most people. And a lot of the people I like chat with online, it's always the same thing. Like, how do I be more consistent? How do I get faster? How do I improve with my running? I was in the exact same boat. I just didn't get it. I didn't understand why anybody in their right mind would enjoy running. Didn't make sense. Like, it's like those people are crazy. They know something that we don't know. And that might be what a lot of people think about me, maybe. But it's not the case. I was in that same boat where I hated exercise. I wanted to puke every time I did cardio, and I would puke. I could not be consistent. Maybe I get into a groove for like a few weeks or months or something, and it would fall apart somehow. You know, everyone like vacation comes up, this other obligation pops up, life gets crazy, and you shift priorities and you stop. And for me, I was getting more and more out of shape, and I had kids, and I started running more consistently, and I realized, hey, if I'm going to be running most days of the week, why not just run every single day of the week and really make this thing part of my life? And part of that too was I noticed the impact of just mental health too. For me personally, if I took days off, I wasn't the same person. As weird as that sounds, I didn't feel the same. And I realized I needed just to run every day. So I just cut the crap, cut out those rest days, and just kept running. And I found for me, just helped me be more consistent, because there's no excuses. I'm not asking myself, if I'm going to run that day, it's when I'm going to run. And everybody knows it. My wife knows it. My kids know it. It's just a non-negotiable. And so it's a priority, and I make sure to get in every day.
Well, Brady, I want to talk a little bit about recovery. About a year and a half ago now, Merrick and I ran a half marathon last April.
Yeah, April of 23. Yes.
And I found myself, when we were training for it, to be quite sore after the fact. Even we were only doing we were going like anywhere from 2 to 5 miles. So we weren't going crazy. I think the most we ran before the half marathon was 8. So how do you overcome the recovery? Do you get sore when you started? Do you get sore? Are you kind of used to it now?
You get used to it. I mean, the body adapts, as weird as it
Mhm.
sounds. I mean, do you get like sore walking a mile, or even like jogging
Yeah.
a mile? Probably not, but then there's some people that probably do.
Absolutely.
They can't jog a mile. So I think it really depends on the person. I don't think there's really any limit. Right?
Yeah.
It's humankind to be able to push themselves and create a new base. And that's something I always talk about is I'm always just raising the base. So my recovery days, to your point, are days where I'm just running my base minimum mileage at a slower pace. I don't know all the science behind it. I won't even really try to understand the science behind it. But there's a book, Endure. It's a good book by
Cam Haines.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
There you
You
go.
read it?
I have not, but I'm familiar with the book. But what
Yeah.
did that book do for you?
Well, so I mean, I read it recently. Actually, I still need to finish it near the end. But he talks about like lactic acid or lactate. The idea of, you pretty much adapt, I guess, with your pace, and how much you're running, I guess, is kind of my understanding of it. So I think at a certain point, I'm not feeling that lactate or the lactic acid buildup for a certain pace and the kind of a certain threshold. So my threshold's increasing over time. I probably just completely butchered that, so hopefully your listeners can correct that. But my understanding is the body adapts. My new minimum is maybe just a little bit higher than the average person. So I rarely get sore. I'll get sore after, like, I ran a marathon in June at a fast pace. It was like my PR 2:45, and it was mostly downhill or all downhill. And I was like, my legs were dead. I could barely walk immediately afterwards. It was pretty nuts, and it kind of surprised me. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I rarely get sore.
So
But
on,
I felt that way after the half
Mhm.
marathon, and I probably had I don't know what our time was, but it probably wasn't even that far off.
I
What
think our time was 2:45 for a half. We were like a 10, 11 minute pace.
Yeah,
Nice.
we were at least I was. I can't speak for Evan and our brother Ethan, but I was just happy to cross the finish line. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a runner. I mean, I don't enjoy running. I ran about a week ago, but similar to you, I'm kind of I mean, just based off hearing you do it because you hate it, and now you're almost what, over 2 years in? Is it 2 years? Where are you at right now?
Over 2 years,
Yeah.
technically. Yeah, I 1 year.
That's fucking awesome, man. I
I
mean that. Wait, but why day one? Um, you just decided. What did you think you were gonna like build a streak, or just one day after another, after another, after another?
Yeah, it's funny. I was running I was running consistently. So I mean, I should correct myself because it's not that the streak like broke that habit of mine of not being consistent. Eventually became more consistent. And I would take that obligatory day off, if you will. It's like, oh, I have to take that day off because that's what they say. And I just like didn't like it. And so I remember texting my friend who's all in the fitness. And I was like, is it okay if I like don't take a rest day? Like, is that true? I was like, I'm just gonna go take a week and see what happens. And it felt fine.
Mhm.
Like no different. Just go maybe a little bit slower on that seventh day. Um, and then it was like I went on vacation. That's what it was. I went on vacation as a beginning of August, Florida, over 2 years ago now. And I took like more than a day off in a row, and I was wrecked. Like I remember telling my wife, I was like, I can't, like I have to go back to our Airbnb and go for a run right now. Like, because I can't, I'd feel like a different person. And it was when we got back from the trip is when I started the streak. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start running every day. I was already doing a step streak, by the way. That helped with consistency. So I guess the streak did help because I'm over 1,100 days on at least 10,000 steps a day.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that actually encouraged my running because I found myself early on just walking around the house to get the steps in. And I was like, you know, why don't I just go for a run and get this thing over with? And it kind of forced me into consistency by being obsessed about that step streak. So baby step streak. Maybe it's the title of my book. We'll see.
When you do
Nice.
run every day, what is the minimum miles you're gonna do? And then what is the max you're gonna do? I saw you did the 40 miles before work, which was just
Yeah.
we'll talk about that. That was just crazy.
Yeah. Well, so I started it with I was already running a pretty good load every week, but I started with a minimum of 5 miles a day for it to count. And part of it was I don't actually I don't really know why it was 5 miles, but I found out soon afterwards that a lot of people considered streaks to be 1 mile a day, which is great. That's awesome. But
Mhm.
to me, in my mind, I was like, well, 1 mile, anyone, you could really do that. It's why you see people run around airports and all this stuff. It's like, you know what would actually be impressive is 5, because how are you
Yeah.
going to get 5 done? So just kept at the 5. And then I slowly increased that over time. So like beginning of the next year, I increased to a 10K as my floor, bare minimum mileage. And then that was 7 miles. I increased it, then to 8, and then to 9. And then now actually today, the day y'all are recording this was 1 year on the dot of at least 10 a day.
10
That's
miles. So, and
incredible.
what's your pace? How long does that take you to do 10 miles?
Depends. Last Friday, was it Friday? Yeah, last Friday I banged it out in about an hour 5. And then other times
Hour and 5. Wow.
I'll go nice and slow other days.
Hmm.
And maybe just do like a 9 or 10 minute pace, just kind of recovery. As I'm doing an ultra and on September 13th.
That's
Um,
100 miles.
yeah, this one's 100 miles. Yeah, Run Rabbit Run 100 in
That's
Steamboat.
that's coming up 9 days, huh?
Yeah, soon. Yeah, so I've been kind of
Oh
laying
boy.
like, tapering off a little bit, which my taper's kind of silly to most people because I'm still running 10 miles. Similar to like when I ran I run my marathons. I'm running 10 miles the day before. The day before the 40 miler, I ran a half marathon the day before. So I love just I don't know if I'll increase the floor again, but I guess maybe
That's
probably
so cool. Now, when you run, whether it be, just in the morning before work or in these long form competitions, are you just with your thoughts or do you have headphones in? What are you doing in that scenario?
headphones for sure.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll go without headphones. Like when I did this like training for this one race, headphones weren't allowed at all. Then I went without headphones every once in a while.
They go out of their way to say no headphones allowed.
Yeah, and it was early on. It was one of my first races, and I'm realizing now I think a lot of races say that, but people still do it.
Interesting.
but I followed the rules. But and every once in a while I'll be like, you know what, let's just be alone by thoughts for a bit. But vast majority of my runs are just headphones or headphones, and I listen to just like podcasts, music, and just screaming music, fast, heavy drums, but also chill.
Nice. So I want to talk about the training for a 100-mile marathon, or the ultra marathon. What are the most miles you do going into the marathon, and what's the format? How many hours do you have to complete 100 miles?
So this is, I mean, it varies. So for anyone
Mhm.
that ultra marathon is any distance over a marathon. So you could go
Okay.
like 50 Ks, right? It's like 32 miles. That's an ultra marathon, right? There's like 50-mile ultras, there's 100-mile ultras, there's Moab 240, it's 240 miles. That's coming up. It's crazy. So it can really, really vary. And also the format can vary because you have just straight up, hey, 100 miles, here's the cutoff time that we're giving everybody. And if you don't hit the cutoff, you don't finish, and then the fastest person wins, right? There's also formats like a backyard ultra. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
No.
It's essentially you run the same 4.16-mile loop over and over again. So you're coming back to the same start finish line, and you have 1 hour to complete that loop, which is a pretty slow pace, but the race goes on indefinitely. So you have a group of people starting, and it's last man standing, and if you don't make it back in time every hour, you don't make it. So this one is just a clean. I ran one of the. I'm top of mind because I just ran one of those a couple months ago. But this one's just a clean 100 miles. I think it's barely over 100 miles how they map it in the mountains of and Steamboat. Is that your question? Sorry, I got
Yeah,
off
I
a
mean,
little.
you remind me so much of David Goggins with doing these crazy runs.
It's
And
flattering.
yeah, I mean, do you watch his stuff ever? Does that motivate you?
I don't watch much of it. I don't like watch much of it, but I've read his
Yeah.
book. I was like a OG David Goggins fan, okay, guys? Like I when before his books came out, I read 30 Living with the Seal by Jesse.
Jesse, it's there. Yep.
Yeah, it was sweet. I read that way back, and I was like a fat slob back then, like I was like, never heard of it. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like it was blew my mind. And then I read his other books, and then he has been an inspiration for sure. He actually his second book when I read that last year, I was like, you know what, I could run an ultra because he was listing off the mileage he was doing. I was like, I run 100 miles in a week, like no big deal, like cool, like maybe I can do an ultra.
Well,
So he's been a big
I
inspiration.
love how you just mentioned that you read Living with the Seal while you were a slob. So let's talk about Braden the slob. Who is that guy?
Um, yeah, who was that guy? I didn't really exercise. I mean, I've posted pictures before. It's not like I was like huge, like I wasn't like big or anything, right? Like
Okay.
60 pounds heavier. Didn't exercise. I ate like I do now, which says a lot because I eat still like a slob. That's something that a lot of people get a kick out of. I mean, I was late to this because I was just slamming some grocery store pizza. And ate a lot of sweets, a lot of candy. But yeah, I mean, I was drinking a lot, a whole lot, a lot of beer. I was a craft beer enthusiast. That was my thing. That was my only hobby,
Especially in
probably.
Colorado too. You got some options.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So that was really it. Like I was pretty like, hating my job, worked in finance at the time. I was actually living in Florida at the time. I was living in Orlando at the time.
Okay.
Uh, and yeah, just unhealthy. I mean, I rode my bike a mile to work, and I thought that was enough exercise. 1 mile on a bike in the Florida heat, and I called it good. Yeah. Anyway,
Swamp ass all day.
yeah. Oh gosh. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Totally.
slot might be. I mean, it's all relative, right? But for me, I mean, yeah, the exercise was farthest thing from my mind.
So I mean, you must lose how many calories a day with the running? I mean, I guess it depends based off your distances, but it's got to be anywhere from what 2 to 4,000 daily, correct?
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right.
And
Depends.
what kind of fitness tracker do you wear?
I use a Garmin Forerunner 945.
And what kind of
What?
impact has that made on your life?
Big impact. I got it. I got my first Garmin coming up on 5 years.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
Okay.
I was running a little bit without a fitness tracker using Map My Run. Do you guys remember that? Or like
No.
I think I
Run?
had that. I had one of those that like track the days you should run too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was doing that and got a Garmin, and it was fun. I posted actually my first Garmin run like a week ago on Instagram to kind of compare like the heart rate and stuff. But I mean, it's had a big change because I mean that's really what inspired the step streak too. Is I heard of someone doing 100 days in a row at 10,000 steps a day, and I was like kind of getting into running, like that'd be cool. So I started doing that over 100, and then I had to get my appendix removed, got reset. Then yeah, but now we have that out of the way, so I don't have to worry about
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I got mine taken out too, so welcome to the club. Yeah.
the reset. But yeah, I mean that's been a huge
Yeah.
impact. I mean, I'm crazy for like that data and like goal setting and like seeing that in front of me. So, wanting to hit 10,000 a day, I mean, really kind of started it all, I guess. So, I mean, yeah, it's been big.
Have you used any other fitness watches or anything? American had a Whoop for a little, and our other brother was talking about getting a Garmin, and I wanted to get this Fitbit, and I ordered it on Amazon. It never came in, so I had to cancel it. But I was just curious what your thoughts are for that Garmin.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert. I mean, I've only worn Garmin, honestly.
Okay.
I did yeah, I used like the older Forerunner. It was like a 235 or something. As my
Mhm.
first battery crapped out, and I've been doing the 945 ever since. Battery lasts forever. Got the music on there, even though I never use it. Still use my phone. But I think Garmin's awesome. I mean, I don't know why, but I'm hooked.
All
Now,
right.
so when you're running, are you super set on just a certain mileage, or are you conscious about staying in a certain zone?
Man, guys, I really I don't overthink it too much. It's kind of weird.
Nice.
That's why I like getting people ask me all sorts of questions about like, oh, like
Yeah.
how many calories are you eating a day? Like, what's like how do you plan out like your training schedule and all this stuff? I put very little thought into it. I kind of just enter a week with like maybe a vague idea of how many miles I want to run, and I run it. I just know I'm running every day, and I kind of listen to my body where it's like, okay, I feel good today, and it's also based on how much time I have that day. I was like, okay, I feel good. I have some extra time. Let's go for a second run or make this run longer or whatever. So I don't really, I guess, overthink it too much. I'm not, every once in a while I'm looking at my heart rate. I mean, every once in a while I was in like, maybe a few times I've done that. Just like kind of judge off my heart rate. But other than that, I'm just going off my body, just how it's feeling, both for pace and distance, like it's just kind of whatever I'm feeling that day.
Well, and based off your Instagram, it seems like you have a lot of early mornings.
Yeah.
So, what time are you usually going to bed? How do you process and force yourself to get up on days you don't want to get up?
Yeah, I was not a morning runner at all up until maybe like a year or two ago. I preferred the afternoon by far, but I found it to be a necessity to get my miles in to wake up earlier. And I have kids. I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. Full-time job is pretty demanding. And my wife's going back to school right now, so she's busy. Like life's kind of nuts, and so that's just kind of the way it kind of pans out. Especially with like kids in school, like making sure I'm getting it in hopefully before they're leaving for school. And it took some adapting. Like I hated it because I'd wake up and I'd be so slow. And I'm still a little bit slower in the morning, I think like most people are,
Mm.
but my body's starting to adapt or has adapted now where I'm faster now, but I enjoy it now. It's cooler, it's usually still a little dark. It's kind of nice. But I had to learn to love morning runs. I'm going to bed, to answer your question, um, around 11 on average, which is a little late. I'm
Mhm.
so bad about sleep. People ask me about it all the time. My sleep is I don't sleep enough for sure. I try to catch up on like a Saturday or Sunday morning and sleep a little bit later to like 7 or hopefully like 8. The kids are happy. And then that'll be like my sweet. I got like over 8 hours. Like I got 9 hours over the weekend last week, and it was amazing. It felt like $1,000,000. But usually it's like 5 or 6 hours a night.
Wow.
Right
So
on.
when that alarm goes off, is there ever a part of you that tries to negotiate with yourself, or those days are over?
I think those days are mostly over. I posted a video yesterday that I was dragging in the morning, mostly because of just getting back to work after the holiday weekend. Running is usually the thing I'm looking forward to the most. So as far as like running and like getting the day going, that's okay, but but it is still tough to get up. But like mainly just like, okay, another day, here we go. Got up this
Yeah.
I
To-
snooze the alarm, and
Well,
I plan for it.
how
I'll
how how helpful has being consistent and being what's the word I'm looking for, accountable to yourself by posting on Instagram and showing to other people?
Yeah, it's well, here's what's funny. I didn't start posting until kind of recently. Like it
Hmm.
was like my run streak was kind of like a dirty secret in a way.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of
Mhm.
embarrassed by it, especially like at work. And I don't know, I don't want people to think like that's all I'm doing is running, Like and I'll be just that nut that's running every single day, and people think it's just kind of psychotic. So honestly, people didn't really know about the streak, except for like my wife, like really close people to me, for like at least the first year. And then I had a buddy last October who's was getting into running, and he was kind of, he knew about my run streak, and he was like, dude, he's like, you should start posting stuff. And I was like, why? That's ridiculous. He's like, people like to watch running stuff. Like people get pumped up. And I was like, that's weird. Like, why do they like watching it?
No,
Yeah. And
you
so I
definitely pumped me up.
I thought it was super strange. Like people watch that stuff. That's great. He was sending me people on like YouTube and stuff that make content. Like Matt Choi was like one he sent, and I was like, yeah, okay, I can kind of see it. Like that's cool. He's like, yeah, you could start posting and like posting your streak, like daily updates and stuff, and people would be interested. Sorry, are you talking? I didn't hear you.
No, were you talking,
Oh,
Barry?
oh no.
All good. All
No.
good.
Sorry.
I was I was gonna say though, like I'm sure most people saw your 40 miles before work because that one went super viral. That popped up on my For You page. I was like, this is 40 miles. I thought I was reading it wrong. 40 miles before 9 a.m. I mean, that fires me up to go do at least a mile, you know?
I love it. I
Wait,
love it. That's
Brandon, does the night before, do you just have a light bulb go off and say, fuck it, I'm going for 40 tomorrow? Or is it kind of just, you wake up maybe in the middle of the night and you can't get back to sleep and it's all right, I'm gonna go run until I can't run anymore.
Oh man, guys. Yeah, that 40 miler thing. So yeah, and I guess the full story behind it is day before. Well, no, actually, yeah, a friend of mine texted me a video, or was it a video or just an idea? No, yeah, it was like an idea of like, hey, you could post a video and be like, hey, for every follower or X number of likes, you run a mile. And he texted that to me, and I didn't respond. I missed it, and I was looking at my text like, wait a minute, I didn't respond to this. And it was Sunday, the day before I ran the 40 miles. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a great idea. I'll post a quick video and see what happens. And I did, and it tallied up to 43 miles. And I had to set an alarm for 11:55 p.m. so that I could wake up and check the end mileage of how much I had to run the next morning. So I didn't know how much I was going to be running up until literally I was asleep. But as I was falling asleep that night, because I was thinking, I asked, as I was posting the video, I told my wife, I was like, what if I have to run like 100 miles on a work day tomorrow? And she looked at me and she was like, I guess you're gonna have to like run 100 miles. And I was like, yeah, I guess so. I guess we'll figure it out. We'll figure out how to do it. Maybe I'll just start running at midnight and then I can run after work. We'll figure it out. So anyway, it was very much unplanned. And as I was falling asleep is when I was thinking about my route, because I have like different routes where I usually go. And I was like, yeah, I could run to this trail or this or that. Like that'd be good. But then, like water and all that stuff. I was like, okay. I was like, wait a minute. I could just run this on the track and make this a little bit easier on myself as far as and I knew it'd be really dark and early. And I'm a little worried about safety and, just like, what, track seems safe, seems predictable. I can keep a predictable pace if I'm going to get these miles in before work. So I was like initially shooting for like maybe like 30, 35 before work is kind of what I was thinking. But yeah, got out there the next morning and felt good and just kind of kept going. Like my pace was a little bit faster than expected. I wasn't really that focused on pace. I wasn't shooting for really anything. I was just running, just kind of listening to my body, and it felt good. And yeah, and it ended up hitting 40. And then I did the extra 3 miles at lunch.
Oh, it was being in Colorado and running, when the sun is not out. Have you had any wild animal encounters?
No, not really. I see deer, and I'll post those in my videos sometimes. I see deer. Maybe I should be more worried about wildlife. No, I like running trails and stuff because people ask about that, and maybe I should carry like bear spray or something. But I haven't really seen anything on the trail. I run a lot on Pikes Peak at Bar Trail. There's a lot of people. It's a pretty crowded trail, so I feel like it's less of a risk. But I probably should be more mindful of it. But I don't really see too many. The thing that gets me is dogs. Dogs off
That's
leash.
funny.
That's the most dangerous. I've been bit by a dog. I've been chased down by dogs. It's nutty out there. But yeah, that's really it.
I'm still trying to get over the fact that you run as much as you do, but you don't get, like you said, the lactic acid. You're not getting sore. I mean, I just can't wrap my head around that. I ran last week for the first time in quite a while, and the next morning I woke up and my shins were sore, my quads. It wasn't like terrible, but you definitely feel it. And for you to run all these miles and miles and just totally be on to the next day, on to the next day, and so on and so forth is truly remarkable.
You
Braden.
adapt, man. Seriously, you adapt. I
Do you
truly
use a Theragun or anything like that helps you recover a little bit?
like a massage gun.
Yeah.
Yes, I got one for Father's Day.
Oh, nice.
Been using that, and that's been sweet.
Yeah,
Really, really.
those are sweet. No,
What
do
what
you
about sauna?
I wish I could. I don't really have access to a sauna. I should. I mean, maybe I don't belong to a gym or anything. I would love to do that in like a hot tub. Like anytime, like I've run a few races this year, and I like to stay at a hotel, obviously that has a hot tub and soak before and after ideally is like the best. Man, yeah, I wish. And cold plunging, I'd love to get into that too. I hear people love that. I just haven't really been able to get into it yet.
so strictly running, no weights? Are you
So I
lifting weights?
This year I started lifting weights. It was after
Nice.
the ultra I did in February. It was my first ultra in February. And I got injured like 4 weeks before. I fell on some ice.
Mm.
That's the other thing. I have to like run in all the snow and the ice and stuff, and that gets really
Yes.
fell on some ice like 4 weeks before. I do some PT, and I got like halfway through the 100 miles, my knee got messed up. And I continued physical therapy, and they're like, look, for the amount of miles you need to run, first of all, you shouldn't run this much, but they're like, or at least take some days off. But I know you're still going to, so you should be lifting some weights twice a week. Here's some exercises, just do it. So I've been doing that. For the last couple months, I haven't because I've been doing Pikes Peak instead, the incline. I don't know if you guys have heard of that. So that's kind of been my leg workout and glute workout.
What is that?
So the incline, look up the Manitou Incline, Colorado, or if you just type in Colorado Incline, it's like known as one of the hardest physical, like natural, like physical challenges in the world. I think it's like number two, and like number one in the US. It's just a staircase essentially on the side of a mountain on the way up to Pikes Peak. It's like 2,800 steps, about a mile, and it's 2,000 feet of vert. So it's essentially straight up climb. And it's crazy. So I've been doing that for like training for my ultra coming up, like 3 times a week. And yeah, and then hiking the rest of or a good chunk of Pikes Peak. But yeah, I try to incorporate strength training for about 30 minutes twice a week is the goal.
Wait.
Wow. And Jesus. Well, here, let me ask you this because you're in Colorado and I've hear people, getting altitude sickness. Is this a real thing or is this a made up thing?
It's a real thing for sure.
Okay.
Definitely a real thing. But you acclimate to it. So it's not something that I've ever really dealt with because I grew up in Colorado. I lived briefly in Florida for 5 years and then had to kind of reacclimate when we moved back. But you acclimate to it. So a lot of people that run high altitude races, if you're gonna do it properly, you should be going up. You should either be training in a way that you're training at high altitude, which some people do, or like, you go up to the race spot if it's high altitude like a week or two before and try to acclimate. If you want to try to avoid that. But yeah, it's a real thing. Can mess you up.
And what are some goals for your ultra marathon coming up in just by the time it's released, I think it'll be a week out.
Yeah. I don't want to jinx it. No, so I don't know. This would be like my first straight 100. So the first one I did was a 30-hour race in February, cold, snowy, trails, it was nuts. We got 106 miles done for that one. I did that backyard ultra, which is again that other format. And everyone dropped out except for me. So ended at 70 miles. I wish we could have gone longer. So this would be like my first like straight, hey, go run 100 miles as fast as you can, and that's pretty cool. So I'm pretty stoked for it. I would love to break 20 hours. I hope I'm not jinxing myself by saying that. That'd be like a very good time, I think.
What's an average time?
It depends on the course very much. So I think a lot of people
Okay.
24 hours is like a very, very good time. This course is pretty tough. It's like 21,000 feet of vert over the 100 miles and a lot of it around 10,000 feet. But I've been doing a lot of training on Pikes Peak and a lot of
Yeah.
climbing. So I feel like I've been running a lot, 120, 130 mile weeks too, a lot this year. So I think I can break 20 hours. That'd be like my goal. And then anything even better than that would be sweet. First place last year was like 17:30. I think it'd be crazy for me to say like I'd love to get close to that, but I'm very
Never know. Go win it.
Hey, I don't know if you guys have been seeing the ultra stuff. Like the guy that won Leadville was his first 100-mile race. And Leadville's like one of the hardest ultras. And he crushed it. He set a course record. Someone UTMB that, I don't know if you guys have heard of that big race in in France.
Okay.
Someone just won that, and they're just an amateur. They weren't even pro. They just won it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Got 720, which only 3 people in history have done. So anything's possible. So I'm shooting for the
Yeah.
stars.
Hey, we're rooting for you. You know, they say hungry dogs run faster.
That's right. That's
Let's
right.
get it.
Are you going to be documenting this throughout your social media?
I'll do my best. Yes. So yes, I will be, but I'm gonna be really focused on the race. So I'll be trying to take out my phone and
Mhm.
video clips and stuff as much as I can, but I'll be pretty locked in. I won't have like another camera or anything like that.
Okay.
But yeah,
We'll get some videos ready for the weekend. Clip them up for you.
What's that? Some
I mean,
videos?
we'll clip some of these up on for our social
There you
media
go.
during the way. Yeah, we'll get our
Okay,
listeners
well, take this clip.
checking
Take
it
this clip right here, right here.
right here. I'll take it right here. You're gonna
So
win this thing. Let's do it.
yeah, so I'm calling it right now. I'm gonna get first place. So you cut that from the podcast. If I don't.
Yes.
I know this is
Well,
really beforehand, so yeah, it's just a joke. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be funny.
and Braden,
Awesome.
last thing here before we let you go, continue preparing. This upcoming Sunday, we got the Broncos football coming back. What can we expect out of Bo Nix and the boys?
Oh my gosh, man, you're gonna embarrass me. I don't follow any sports.
Okay.
That's the weirdest
Oh,
thing
yeah.
ever. Weird Mike Swan, who's 4, knows the Broncos better than I do.
Hey, well, to
I don't
your defense, you appear to be more athletic than most of the guys on that field. So we'll end on that note. Braden, thank you so much for joining us. You're a beast, man, and you know
guys are awesome.
your social media is about to blow up. So we're happy we got you. So thank you
It-
so much for everything, man. You are very inspiring to say the least.
Thank you guys. Appreciate that. Well, this was a pleasure, and wishing you guys the best. Thank you.
Before we go, Brayden, where could our listeners find you?
Yeah, they can find me on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. YouTube is, I mean, it's all very similar content. I need to diversify, but yeah, Instagram. Pick your poison. Whatever you want to get addicted to the most. I'll be there. And if you have I only got an Instagram because one of my YouTube followers 2 months ago. I've only been on Instagram for 2 months. He was like, "Hey, you should get on YouTube," and I was like, "I'm already trying to juggle YouTube and TikTok," and I was like, "Okay, fine." And I'm very glad I listened to him. So shout out to him. I think his name's like Angelo or whatever. Is it
Thank you, Angelo. Shout out.
Yeah, I'll tag him somewhere. But yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Braden.
Right
Thanks,
on.
man.
Take care, man.